you think of electric cars shaking the world, you probably imagine names like Tesla, BYD, or NIO. Massive corporations spending billions trying to dominate the EV race. But no one, and I mean no one, expected Britain to enter the battlefield with a $6,399 surprise that turned the entire industry upside down. It's called the DoGoode Zero, and it's making headlines for one reason. It's unbelievably cheap. We're talking about a brand new electric car that costs less than most electric scooters in Europe. Imagine this. While companies across China and the US are fighting to create the car of the future, Britain quietly launched a tiny EV that already feels like it's from that future. And it costs less than your average smartphone on monthly payments. The reactions were instant. Social media lit up with disbelief. Some called it a hoax. Others thought it was a publicity stunt. But when the first DoGoode Zero rolled out of its factory, jaws dropped. It wasn't just real. It was running silently on British streets. So what's the big deal? In a world where even the cheapest Tesla costs over $35,000, how did a small British company build a functioning EV for just $6,000? What technology are they using that's making even Chinese automakers stop and pay attention? And most importantly, could this humble little car actually threaten the giants of the EV world? That's the question echoing across the industry, because the DoGoode Zero isn't just another electric car. It's a statement. A signal that the next revolution in EVs might not come from Silicon Valley or Shanghai, but from a small workshop in Britain. But before we uncover what makes this tiny machine so extraordinary, we need to understand how Britain itself became the unexpected home of this new electric revolution. Because something's been happening quietly on its roads. A transformation so big that it set the perfect stage for a car like this to exist. If you drive through Britain today, you'll notice something strange. The familiar roar of engines, that deep growling soundtrack of city life, is disappearing. In its place, there's a new kind of sound, or rather, a lack of it. A quiet hum. The whisper of electric motors gliding down the streets. For decades, Britain was known for its obsession with petrol and diesel. The country that gave the world the Mini Cooper, the Jaguar, and the Aston Martin was built on gasoline dreams. But now, that dream is fading. The new sound of progress is silence. It didn't happen overnight. Just a few years ago, electric cars were seen as luxury toys for the rich, futuristic experiments for tech enthusiasts. But then something shifted. Technology improved, batteries got cheaper, and most importantly, the British mindset changed. The government's bold decision set the tone. By 2035, the sale of any new petrol or diesel cars will be banned entirely. That one announcement flipped the entire industry on its head. Automakers had two choices: go electric or go extinct, and they chose to adapt fast. By 2024, Britain broke records with nearly 350,000 electric cars sold, an 18% jump from the previous year. But these weren't just expensive cars like Teslas or BMWs. Affordable models like the Nissan Leaf, MG4 EV, and Vauxhall Corsa Electric were dominating the streets. People began realizing something powerful. EVs weren't just for the elite anymore. They were for everyone. Charging stations popped up everywhere. From supermarket parking lots to small-town corners, EV chargers started glowing in blue and green lights, symbols of a new era. There are now more than 50,000 public charging stations across Britain, with over 1,000 new ones added every month. And thanks to fast charging, even long journeys no longer cause range anxiety. But infrastructure alone didn't spark this revolution. Incentives did. The government scrapped old fuel subsidies and replaced them with EV rewards. Tax breaks, road tax exemptions, company car incentives, everything designed to make electric the smarter, cheaper option. The result? Electric cars are no longer rare. You'll find them everywhere, in taxi fleets, delivery vans, corporate parking lots, and family driveways. From London's crowded streets to quiet villages, the electric era has arrived. And yet, as all these changes unfolded, one question remained. If electric is the future, why are prices still so high? Why does going green cost so much money? That's the question one small British company dared to answer. While the world's automakers focused on luxury, performance, and prestige, this team had a different dream: an electric car for the people. Not a statement of status, but a symbol of accessibility. And from that dream, the DoGoode Zero was born. Every revolution starts with a spark. And for the DoGoode Zero, that spark didn't come from a billionaire or a massive corporation. It came from a tiny British workshop and a handful of engineers who were tired of seeing electric cars sold like luxury gadgets instead of practical tools. They weren't chasing fame or headlines. They had one mission: make an electric car that anyone could afford. A car that didn't need to be fast or fancy, just functional, efficient, and liberating. It all started with a group of engineers from the aerospace and renewable energy sectors who came together around a bold idea. What if an EV didn't have to cost more than a used gas car? They knew the problem wasn't the battery or the motor. It was how the industry built cars. Every EV on the market was packed with unnecessary features: oversized touchscreens, premium interiors, and marketing budgets larger than the cost of the vehicles themselves. But what if you stripped all that away? What if you focused on the essentials: mobility, sustainability, and simplicity? That's exactly what the founders of DoGoode Automotive did. They built the first prototype in a small facility in Northamptonshire, using lightweight materials and an ultra-compact design. The goal was clear: to build something that could outlast the noise of modern car design. A minimalist EV with a purpose. When the first DoGoode Zero prototype rolled out, it wasn't glamorous. It didn't have butterfly doors or a 0 to 60 speed that could impress a crowd. But it worked. And more importantly, it was cheap to build. Astonishingly cheap. The DoGoode team used modular battery packs, meaning they could replace or upgrade them without changing the entire system. They sourced parts locally, using recycled aluminum and composite panels to cut both weight and costs. Even the interior told the same story: clean, simple, practical. No fake leather, no giant screens, just what you need to drive. And then came the real shocker: the price tag. $6,399. At first, even the team couldn't believe it. An electric car for the price of a used motorcycle? It sounded impossible. But once they broke down the numbers, reduced production lines, local sourcing, low marketing overhead, it suddenly made sense. The DoGoode Zero wasn't trying to compete with Tesla's Model 3. It was built for the student, the delivery worker, the everyday driver who just wanted a reliable way to get around without drowning in fuel costs. And in doing so, DoGoode Automotive had unknowingly tapped into something massive: The people's EV movement. When the first photos leaked online, the internet lost its mind. Forums lit up with debates. Is this real? How is it street legal? Why isn't everyone else doing this? But what really made people stop scrolling was its look. Small, minimalist, futuristic, like a blend between a smart car and a Mars rover. It didn't look cheap. It looked different. And that difference sparked curiosity, the kind that spreads like wildfire across social media. Because while every other automaker was chasing performance and luxury, DoGoode Zero stood for something else. Freedom. Freedom from high prices. Freedom from constant upgrades. Freedom from the idea that sustainability had to come with a luxury badge. But as the buzz grew, so did the pressure. People wanted to know, who exactly are these people behind DoGoode? And how did such a small team manage to create what billion-dollar corporations said was impossible? That's where the story gets even more interesting. Because the true power behind DoGoode Zero isn't just in its design, it's in the people who built it. When people first saw the DoGoode Zero, most assumed it had to be a scam. How could a working electric car cost less than a new iPhone? That was the question echoing across comment sections, car forums, and tech blogs worldwide. But here's the thing. The DoGoode team didn't break the rules of car manufacturing. They simply rewrote them. While traditional automakers pour billions into factories, marketing, and glossy dashboards, DoGoode took a radically different path. One rooted in simplicity, sustainability, and logic. The secret began with modular engineering. Instead of building everything from scratch, they designed a flexible chassis that could fit multiple configurations. Need a delivery model? Swap out the back. Want a two-seater city version? Change the module. This approach slashed production costs and made the Zero easy to repair, upgrade, and recycle, something most automakers still struggle to achieve. Next came the battery revolution. DoGoode didn't chase the high-performance lithium cells used by Tesla or BYD. They went with LFP batteries, cheaper, safer, and longer lasting. These batteries don't explode under stress, and while they don't provide massive range, they deliver exactly what city drivers need, about 150 miles on a single charge. For most commuters, that's a full week of driving. But the brilliance didn't stop there. They also used low-voltage architecture, which dramatically cut wiring costs and reduced manufacturing complexity. This allowed smaller factories, even local assembly lines, to produce the DoGoode Zero without massive investments in robotics or specialized labor. The materials were another stroke of genius. Instead of using heavy steel, DoGoode chose recycled aluminum and thermoplastic composites, strong enough to keep passengers safe, yet light enough to boost efficiency. Every pound saved meant longer battery life and less strain on the motor. Even the Why build an expensive entertainment system when everyone already carries one in their pocket? And that's the essence of DoGoode's design philosophy. Use what people already have. Build what they actually need. This mindset allowed them to skip nearly 60% of the costs that traditional EV manufacturers consider standard. The result? A car that feels futuristic, yet stripped of unnecessary luxury. Efficient without excess. Even their manufacturing process was shockingly lean. Instead of one massive plant, DoGoode operates a micro-factory network where local partners assemble the vehicles using pre-built modules. This not only cuts logistics costs, but also creates jobs across small towns in Britain. An economic ripple effect that's turning heads far beyond the auto industry. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about the DoGoode Zero isn't just how it's built. It's how it challenges the status quo. Because for the first time, an automaker proved that sustainability doesn't need to come with a six-figure price tag. And as the first Zeros began rolling onto British streets, people realized something shocking. This wasn't a cheap EV. It was a smart EV, one that could completely redefine what electric mobility means for everyday people. But as praise and attention poured in, DoGoode faced something they hadn't fully prepared for: the spotlight. Because once you disrupt an entire industry, the giants of that industry don't just sit and watch. They respond, and not always in friendly ways. Every great revolution has a secret, and for the DoGoode Zero, that secret sits quietly beneath the floor. While everyone focused on its $6,399 price tag, few realized that the real story wasn't the car itself. It was the battery inside it. Most electric vehicles live or die by their batteries. They're the single most expensive component, often making up 40% of a car's cost. That's why EVs have stayed expensive for so long. But DoGoode's engineers cracked the code, and they did it by breaking one of the biggest taboos in the industry. They stopped chasing range. Instead of building a 300-mile monster battery, they designed something smarter: a compact, modular LFP battery pack with just enough capacity for city life, around 150 miles per charge, but designed to be swapped, expanded, or recycled with ease. It wasn't about endurance. It was about efficiency and access. Here's the genius. Instead of gluing battery cells together like most manufacturers, DoGoode created a slide and lock module system. Think of it like Lego for batteries, small, identical cells that can be replaced or upgraded individually. If one cell fails, you don't need to replace the whole pack. If you want a longer range, you simply add an extra module. This simple shift did more than cut costs. It changed the game. Maintenance dropped. Recycling became easier. And suddenly, something that had always been the most fragile part of an EV became its most flexible feature. But the innovation didn't stop there. DoGoode partnered with a local battery startup that developed low-heat, solid-state technology, reducing energy loss during charging. That means faster charging speeds, longer battery lifespan, and fewer safety concerns. It wasn't bleeding-edge tech from a billion-dollar lab. It was British ingenuity, born from necessity and executed with precision. And perhaps the most unexpected breakthrough came from where no one was looking: the power management software. DoGoode's in-house system constantly monitors each module, balancing power draw and temperature in real time. That optimization alone extends battery life by up to 25%, meaning these packs could last well over a decade with minimal degradation. The result? A battery that costs a fraction of what competitors pay, yet performs at nearly the same level for its intended use. No over-engineering, no luxury excess, just smart, scalable design. And that's what made the DoGoode Zero so disruptive. Because while most automakers treat batteries as a problem to hide behind plastic panels and software locks, DoGoode turned theirs into a feature, something owners could understand, customize, and even replace themselves. It's the kind of innovation that big companies avoid, not because it doesn't work, but because it threatens their business model. A battery this simple and accessible doesn't just lower costs, it lowers dependence. Suddenly, EV ownership didn't have to be controlled by expensive service plans or corporate repair centers. For the first time, the power, literally, was in the hands of the people, and that terrified the giants. Because if DoGoode could make a $6,399 EV work using modular batteries, what would stop others from doing the same? What would happen if this idea spread from small towns in Britain to factories across Europe, Africa, or Asia? The answer was clear. It wouldn't just disrupt the market. It could collapse the luxury illusion that's kept electric cars overpriced for years. And that's when the pushback began. The silence on Britain's roads was about to be replaced by something. When people first saw the DoGoode Zero, most didn't take it seriously. It was small, simple, and cost less than a used scooter. So naturally, the internet laughed. "Sure, it's cute," one commenter said, "but can it even handle a hill?" Then came the test drives, and that's when the laughter stopped. The DoGoode Zero might look tiny, but it's built for urban combat, the daily grind of tight corners, crowded streets, and endless traffic lights. Its compact body and instant torque make it glide through cities with surprising confidence. At just under 3 meters long, it can fit into parking spots other cars wouldn't even attempt. And with its ultra-light frame, every ounce of battery power turns into acceleration, not wasted weight. 0 to 30 miles per hour, 3.8 seconds. That's faster than some gas-powered hatchbacks, twice its price. And while it tops out at around 60 miles per hour, that's more than enough for city highways and suburban commutes. But speed isn't the DoGoode Zero's main advantage. Control is. With its low center of gravity and rear-wheel drive setup, it feels planted and responsive, even when darting through traffic or zipping around roundabouts. You don't drive it, you pilot it. Then there's the battery efficiency. Because of its lightweight materials and optimized aerodynamics, the DoGoode Zero gets the equivalent of 300 mpge, an energy efficiency rating that puts even Tesla's Model 3 to shame in city driving. It's not about raw power, it's about smart power. Even the tires are part of the secret. DoGoode partnered with a sustainable rubber manufacturer to create low-resistance eco-treads, designed specifically for urban grip and reduced wear. It's small details like that, invisible to most, that make the Zero so quietly revolutionary. Inside, everything feels purposeful. There's no clutter, no excess, just the essentials. A compact steering wheel, minimalist display, and wide windshield that makes the cabin feel airy despite its size. It's not luxury, it's logic. And for city drivers, that logic hits hard. With rising fuel costs, parking fees, and congestion zones, the DoGoode Zero offers something the competition doesn't: freedom from city chaos. It doesn't just fit the future, it fits the present. It's small enough to outmaneuver traffic, efficient enough to skip constant charging, and affordable enough to put electric driving within reach of people who never thought they could own an EV. That's why in London, Manchester, and Birmingham, the DoGoode Zero isn't just a car anymore. It's a movement. Delivery drivers, students, and small business owners are switching over in waves. They've discovered that in a world obsessed with more, sometimes the smartest choice is less. But as the DoGoode Zero quietly conquers Britain's city streets, something even bigger is brewing behind the scenes. Because the car's design isn't just winning over consumers, it's starting to catch the attention of foreign markets. And that's where the story takes a turn, from Britain's backroads to a global stage that's about to feel the DoGoode effect. What began as a quiet British experiment is now echoing across the entire world. The DoGoode Zero, a car that cost less than some electric bicycles, has become the epicenter of a global shockwave. When the news broke, a fully electric car for just $6,399, headlines didn't just appear in London. They flashed across screens in Shanghai, Berlin, Tokyo, and California. The world's biggest automakers, Tesla, BYD, NIO, Volkswagen, suddenly had one question on their boardroom tables. How did a small British company do this? Because it wasn't supposed to be possible. Every EV manufacturer had told the same story for years. You can't make a safe, reliable electric car for under $20,000. DoGoode just proved them wrong by a factor of 3. In the weeks that followed, social media went into meltdown. Clips of the tiny white car zipping through London streets hit millions of views overnight. TikTok users called it the people's Tesla. Auto reviewers called it a slap to the face of global EV pricing. And investors started whispering, if they can mass produce it, this could rewrite the entire industry. But this wasn't just about price. It was about philosophy. While others raced to build luxury for the few, DoGoode built mobility for the many. And that message resonated, especially in countries where car ownership had become a dream, slipping out of reach. In India, Indonesia, and Vietnam, online forums lit up with excitement. People were doing the math. If it costs $6,000 in the UK, it could be even cheaper here. For millions who commute on scooters, this wasn't just an EV. It was a revolution on wheels. Europe took notice too. In the Netherlands, where sustainability drives culture, buyers started petitioning for DoGoode's import. In Norway, EV enthusiasts compared it to their high-end Teslas and admitted this tiny car made more sense for short drives. And in Latin America and Africa, governments began reaching out, exploring partnerships to assemble similar micro-EVs locally. Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley, the mood was different, a quiet panic. Because if DoGoode's direct-to-customer, no-dealership model could scale, it might shatter the cost structure that global automakers rely on. The giants suddenly realized innovation had come from the smallest car in the room. Industry analysts began calling it the DoGoode effect, a shift not just in technology, but in ideology. The moment when the electric car stopped being a status symbol and became a simple tool of freedom again. Tesla executives were reportedly studying DoGoode's production model in private. Chinese EV startups began cutting costs and rushing microcar designs. Even Japanese firms, known for their compact efficiency, were suddenly on alert. And all this from a car that barely makes a sound when it moves. Irony at its finest, the quietest car in the world just made the loudest noise in the global EV industry. But DoGoode's ambitions don't stop there. Rumors are swirling that the company is already planning export-ready models, fine-tuned for Asian and European markets. If those versions meet local safety and emission standards, the DoGoode Zero won't just disrupt, it will dominate. Because here's the truth. While other companies are designing for tomorrow's rich, DoGoode is designing for today's real world. And that, more than any battery or software, might be the most powerful innovation of all. When the first DoGoode Zero silently rolled out onto a London street, no one could have predicted it would spark a conversation that stretched across continents. What started as a small British experiment has become something much larger, a glimpse into the next frontier of electric mobility. For decades, innovation in the auto industry has meant one thing: bigger, faster, and more expensive. Companies have been chasing horsepower, luxury screens, and futuristic self-driving promises. But DoGoode dared to ask a different question. What if progress wasn't about adding more, but removing what we don't need? That question is now reshaping how the world thinks about cars. Because maybe the future of transportation isn't a $100,000 EV with gull-wing doors and AI autopilot. Maybe it's a simple, efficient $6,000 car that gives everyone the chance to move freely, cleanly, and affordably. And this idea, mobility for all, is powerful. Governments are watching closely. Developing nations see in DoGoode a blueprint to leapfrog the fossil fuel era entirely. Imagine entire cities in Asia or Africa buzzing quietly with fleets of small electric cars, powered by local renewable grids. No noise, no smoke, no chaos. That's the vision now unfolding before us. But DoGoode's journey is only beginning. The company has hinted at what's next. A global rollout strategy, starting with Europe and Asia. Engineers are reportedly testing modular battery packs, potentially allowing range upgrades or swaps. And whispers from insiders suggest a new model, slightly larger but still ultra-affordable, might be unveiled next year. If true, it could bridge the gap between personal EVs and shared mobility, changing not just how we drive, but how we think about owning a car. Meanwhile, legacy automakers are facing a reckoning. For years, they said cheap EVs don't make sense. Now, DoGoode has made sense of it, not with massive factories or trillion-dollar funding, but with creativity and courage. It's proof that innovation isn't always about money. It's about mindset. And that's the real shockwave. DoGoode Zero didn't just redefine electric cars. It redefined ambition. It showed that true disruption isn't loud or flashy. Sometimes it hums quietly down a city street, unnoticed at first, until the world realizes it's the sound of change. So what's the next frontier? It's not just new technology. It's accessibility, sustainability, equality in motion. The dream that clean transport shouldn't be a privilege, it should be a right. Because if a small British startup can make an electric car for $6,399, then the question isn't if the world will go electric, it's how soon. And when that happens, when cities around the world fall silent, not because they've stopped moving, but because they're moving cleaner and smarter, we'll remember the moment it all began. Not in a billion-dollar factory, not in Silicon Valley, but in a modest workshop in Britain, where someone dared to do good.